Hello, my name is Matthew, and we are on shelf 5 of my tiny house library tour, and we'll just get started. And our first book is The Iliad by Homer, and this is translated by Robert Fagles. The image of the helmet on the cover, the actual helmet is located in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. And I once got on a train and went to New York and went to the Metropolitan in search for that helmet, and I found it. It was years ago. The next book is The Art of Rhetoric by Aristotle. I've never found anything of value in anything that I've read by Aristotle, and I don't need this book. I know I won't be reading it. Studies in Hysteria by Sigmund Freud and Joseph Breuer. Cover, it's another penguin. And it's these outrageous case studies of all the things about Sigmund Freud. He was a really engaging writer. I remember enjoying quite a few of these, just being very surprised. And we have a smaller modern library classic, and this is a two-part book. The first is the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, and then Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet James, and it's a smaller proportion. And I read the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, and it was powerful and moving. I still have not read Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Lost Illusions by Henri de Balzac, and this is translated by Kathleen Rain, and it's a modern library. I remember the reason I read this book is I remember reading Oscar Wilde talking about how he cried when a certain character that was in Lost Illusions dies, and I thought that it was enough for me to read the book, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite Balzac novels, but it turns out the character that Oscar Wilde was referring to, that he cried about, that was in this book, doesn't die in this book. He's in a sequel, and he dies in another book. So I got to the end. I was like, he didn't die. It's funny. Okay. Of Human Bondage by Somerset Maugham, another modern library classic. A very good novel by Somerset Maugham. And something different, we have The Collection by Nina Liger, and it has a really interesting cover. I read this maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's translated from French. I never would have heard about this book if it wasn't for Eric Carl Anderson. He talked about it on his channel, and it just looked so fascinating. It's another example of finding things that I otherwise never would have if it wasn't for people that make booktube videos. Thank you, Eric. We have an Oxford classic, and it's two plays by Frederick Schiller. We have Don Carlos and Mary Stuart. They're two historical plays. I've read Don Carlos, and I still have not read Mary Stuart. Don Carlos is a historical play set in Spain. Mary Stuart, I believe, would be Scotland. Okay. The Best Short Stories by Fyodor Dostoevsky, modern library classic. And Life on the Mississippi by Mark Twain. And at this point, you already see that there's a theme going through these shelves, the authors that I like, I'll have as much as I can buy them on my shelves. So another um, Chronicle by Mark Twain. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. It's been a very long time, but Oliver Twist was one of the first novels that my friend Bob recommended that I read, and it was one of the first novels that I enjoyed, a classic that I thought was funny, and I was invested in the story. So now we have Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann, the John Woods translation. Um, I found this to be more of a challenge than the Magic Mountain. This is a modern retelling of the Faustian story, and it's has a lot of politics and um, issues that Germany was having at the time. So that there was, I know a lot that I just wasn't understanding, but the parts that I understood were great. Another gangster movie, we have Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci. Look at those three. Okay. Oh, all right. Oxford World's Classic, uh, First Love and Other Stories by Ivan Turgenev. And I was actually reading these stories this weekend. I read with a friend. We read Asia and King Lear of the Steppes. We read those together. Um, a kind of a French Revolution history novel. Um, The Gods Will Have Blood, Anatole France. And it's a slim thing, and I didn't finish it. I didn't understand enough of what was going on, and I just wasn't interested. I tried. I'll go back to it. Maybe. Two collections of shorter works by the Marquis de Sade. So we have The Misfortunes of Virtue and Other Early Tales. And then The Crimes of Love. Yeah, so it's a good... it's good to see if you have any interest at all in reading the Marquis de Sade, to read one of these short stories instead of Justine or Juliet or whatever. The Critique of Judgment by Immanuel Kant. It's a great cover. And another book that I've I've put effort into, and I just don't understand anything. Yeah, I don't. At some point, I'm going to be getting rid of these books. I've spent a lot of time reading and thinking about some of the books like this, the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, and it just doesn't do anything for me. Okay. Selected Poems by Jules Laforgue. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. It's a old Penguin classic, and I remember ordering this because I was reading that T.S. Eliot really enjoyed. He thought Laforgue was this brilliant poet, and I think when you're young and curious, you can get into this habit of looking for like hidden gems or unknown masterpieces, or the writer's writer, the novel that all the novelists like, but not as known to the general public and things like that. And that could work to a point. You can find you can trace authors that were influenced by other authors and find a lot of great things. And this is an example for me getting this and thinking, yeah, not many people have heard of them, uh, especially in English translation. I don't see anything. Um, I don't. There's no reason. I just didn't like it. And it's a collection of poems, so I read a handful of them and just um, wasn't interested. Defense speeches by Cicero, and um, there's a handful of these kind of writers that I know are supposed to be these great writers. Cicero is practically known for that clean rhetorical style, and I've read a handful of these defense speeches and enjoyed them, but not nearly as thought provoking or moving or as impressive as I um, had thought. It might be different if I was like in a class, and it might obviously would be different if I was reading in Latin. But um, for the tools that I have in my toolkit, um, Cicero hasn't done it for me the way that um, I was led to believe. I still did like the things that I've read. Um, the Return of the Native by Thomas Hardy, and uh, I read this in a literature class in college, um, and that was quite fun. I really like Thomas Hardy. Another ancient Greek novel. This is Leucippe and Clitophon by Achilles Taiatis. I'm not sure how to say that. Um, and it's just another great, um, really strange, adventurous romance story, full of magic and fantasy and um, uh, it says it's the most bizarre and risque of the five Greek novels. That's good. Okay, Verlaine. This is a great counterbalance to that Laforgue. So Verlaine is probably as close as I can get to really recognizing how much I'm missing in translation. And with Verlaine, there's still enough there for me to recognize um, the beauty, the musicality, the lyricism um, in the words that I'm reading, and also in the spirit of the words that Verlaine intended, and that was missing in Laforgue. So I don't know if that's a good comparison or not. David Hume, An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. Um, and so far through these shelves, there's been quite a few philosophers that I've mentioned that I'm not too impressed by or haven't gotten much out of. And David Hume is a philosopher that have spent a lot of time with, and not only recognize a lot of thought-provoking ideas, but ideas that I want to understand better and return to him. Okay. Tacitus, The Histories. This is an old world's classic, and uh, this is a good example of uh, my curiosity being bigger than my general understanding. So I like to think of myself as a Roman history buff. and I have the toughest time reading these Roman histories. This is a book that I want. I want to I want to be able to read this and um, understand it, but it's been so tough. Um, it's one of the reasons I want to have that Livy project. I feel like I need to get uh, the groundwork to start building on, and so one day I hope to uh, know a little bit about Roman history. Uh, and that's our bookshelf tour. We're going up. I'm not sure how we're going to be handling this. I'll figure it out. But let me know what you think of the books that I have, or um, your thoughts on them, or the things that I said about them, anything like that. So, thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you would like, and take care.